All right, welcome to another edition of Buc What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Super Heavyweight. You follow me, I'll follow you back. I love talking sports. And sorry for the hiatus, but I'm back. Uh, Big game coming up this week against the Chicago Bears. Let's get that home game win. So I'm joined tonight. My guest Terra. Terra is a longtime Bucs fan, and she's somebody that this is a fan show. I love, getting the fans involved, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to have somebody on who knows about this team and has been following this team for a long time. And for her, she's been following this team most of her life, which is kind of cool. So, Tara, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I have been a fan of the Bucs all my life, as far as I can remember. It's not that long; it's only 20 years so far, so we're still rocking young. You can reach me at Terra LSP, Terra LSP on Twitter. That's where I'm most active, so you can follow me there. I'll probably follow you back as long as you don't look weird. I'm very judgmental sometimes. Don't know eggs.
No eggs.
No eggs. That's about it. As long as you're not an egg, you're fine. But yeah, there's not a whole lot more to know. I'm currently trying to be a sports journalist, and so like talking about the Bucs. Though I am not afraid to show my bias. So might get me
All
in
right,
trouble.
that's what I'm talking about. So I haven't been on for a couple of weeks, and we've had this skid, this home game skid, and I really, I want to talk about what's going on. What do you see happening with the Bucs? At the beginning of the season, there were a lot of things that the fans thought would happen with the Bucs, myself included. I felt like having the offensive coordinator become the coach kept some of the continuity for the team. And unfortunately, what we've seen is a team that's, missed on plays, missed on tackles, and, they're just not playing like you would have expected them. So I want to get your take on that, especially the last two games. I know you've watched them, and just get your thoughts on what you've seen and what do you see that the Bucs could improve on.
I agree with you with the whole keeping some continuity with promoting Cutter to head coach. I thought that if we were getting rid of Lovey, that was the next move. And I was a proponent for getting rid of Lovey. I didn't think we should hire him to begin with. But again, you're concerned about continuity and just having a constant base around this team also made me want to keep Lovey a little. But keeping Cutter kind of satisfied both of those. So I was glad with that. With that being said, the offensive play calling has been lacking a little for me. I think we keep trying to make Winston or Cutter, I don't know who it is, but they keep trying to go deep. And Winston needs to start slow and then ramp up. That's when you see him be his best. When he starts with the slants, starts with the quick passes, and then go deep. And he hasn't been doing that. He's been trying to go deep right off the bat. So I think that's been a bit of a issue with our offense. Our defense, it seems like it's the same thing for the past 10 years, just like lack of a secondary, essentially. Just not being able to cover correctly. It seems like we wait for the wide receiver to catch the ball. And then once they catch the ball, we try to rely on our tackling, which has been an issue. So that's what I've seen be the biggest concerns with the Bucs so far. And going back to the whole having some constant bases, getting rid of players like Mark Barron who could help with that. I liked Mark Barron. I didn't think we should have traded him to the Rams. I know some Bucs fans disagree with that, but I liked Mark Barron. But so keeping some people in the secondary could have helped with this issue we're having with lack of tackling and just all around coverage in the secondary. So those have been the two big things for me against the Falcons and Raiders, who have great passing offenses. So yeah.
All right. Yeah, and I want to touch on that because you mentioned Mark Barron. And I know these fans think I'm a broken record because I keep saying this. But if you have one coach in place, and I'll give you an example, Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, Marvin Lewis, you can say what you want to about the Cincinnati Bengals. I would love for the Bucs to consistently go to the playoffs. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Another guy who's consistently been around. Bill Belichick, prime example. Let's see, the coach Riverboat Ron over in Carolina. Just so many coaches that Pete Carroll. All these coaches that I've mentioned, they all have one thing in common. They've been in place and they've been able to implement their team, and they've kept things going. And the majority of them have a great working relationship with the general manager who's able to get these players in that fit into this scheme. So for me, I think that's a huge deal. That is a huge deal. So uh, when you talk about Mark Barron was drafted by one coach, and another coach came in, and he didn't fit into that coach's scheme. So there's that's something that you have to keep in mind as well. You look at Aqib Talib and Michael Bennett and just different players that could have made an impact on this team, and they were sent wherever. So that's part of what I see as well. And fans, I just hope that fans can be patient. I know it's hard to be patient with all the losses that you've seen, but it's important to be patient because it's going to take a while to get the player personnel in place to really or fit into a coordinator scheme. Example, Mike Smith. Mike Smith is having to work with Chris Conte. Chris Conte was inherited. It wasn't somebody that Mike Smith said, hey, can we go out and get this guy to fit into my scheme? Mm-hmm. That just wasn't the case. So that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah, no, a prime example of what you're talking about was Darrelle Revis. We signed him for that year. We got him. And then Lovie Smith came in and decided Darrelle Revis didn't fit his system. So we needed to then get rid of Darrelle Revis. And then we replaced him with Alteron Werner, which in my mind was the cheaper version of Darrelle Revis. But we already had Darrelle Revis not for a lot of money. Like he already had a pretty cheap contract for us. So, I mean, it's exactly to your point where a new coach comes in and he either inherits these players and these players need time to adjust, or you bring in new players with you and there's still that period of adjustment to the system you have in place and your other players on the field that you have in place. It's just a period for adjustment that fans don't have patience for anymore. And therefore the ownership and the people in the front office feel that heat because the fans don't have the patience. And so then they think they need to make some drastic move like firing a head coach. And we're in this cycle where we have Greg Schiano, Lovie Smith, Raheem Morrison, Dirk Cutter ever since John Gruden. So
yeah, you're talking 5 and 3. You're talking from John Gruden to the present, 5 head coaches and 3 general managers. Yeah. That is not a winning recipe for anything. Mm-hmm. Nothing. So, I mean, if you include Tony Dungy and Rich McKay, that's even worse, So just the level of turnover, just being able to keep a coach in place and weather the storm from the fans, and being upset. I think this team will eventually settle down. Mm-hmm. And, we're on the clock right now. You look at Gerald McCoy, he's 27. And, he's getting up there, it's time, it's time to build something around him to make it work.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize he was 27. I still remember us drafting him. Wow. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no.
All right. So, I'm kind of wanting to talk about this upcoming game with the Bears. Mm-hmm. And I just want to get your thoughts on it. I know Jay Cutler had his first game back Halloween. And he looked pretty good, and I just want to get your thoughts on the Bears and what do you think about the Bears coming into this season?
Well, coming into the season, I thought they were going to be about a 500 team. I thought the Lions were going to be a lot worse than they were, so I thought the Bears would be probably third in the division behind, and with the Lions behind them, and so the Bears have not met those expectations and the Lions have exceeded my expectations. Probably have something to do with Cutler being out, but even with Cutler in, the Bears don't seem to be able to put it all together, and I think it's that offensive line. So going back to Gerald McCoy, if he can capitalize on that, if we can get some pressure on Cutler, that would be very helpful for this game for the Bucs. And they don't have I'm not impressed by the Bears wide receiving core either, which could really put some pressure off of our secondary. They don't have to be not facing Julio Jones or Amari Cooper. There's not one of those wide receivers with the Bears, so it could lend some pressure off of them, which could be helpful.
Yeah, and Alshon Jeffries is no slouch. But to your point, I like what you're talking about. Getting pressure on the quarterback makes all the difference in the world. It makes the quarterback speed up what he's trying to do, and your secondary doesn't have to cover as long. And I was really hoping that with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bringing all these free agents in, it would help with the pass rush, which would kind of cover up some of the deficiencies on the secondary. And I think that it will get better. I really do. I think the move to bring in Brent Grimes, I know a lot of people were upset with some of his play early on in the season, but I feel like he's really settled down and He's made some plays, and what you see on our secondary is a vast improvement over what we saw last season. And why I say this is I don't know if you remember last season, there was a cornerback carousel.
Oh yeah.
You didn't know from one week to the next who was going to be your starting cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to have two guys and knowing who your guys are back there, that starts with consistency. So, it's working its way.
Yeah, no, and you're right about Brent Grimes. He's been probably our most consistent cornerback we've had on the roster. Hargraves is starting to smooth and he's starting to get the hang of things, but also when we put him on Julio Jones last game, that's when things started to fall apart. I think we had Grimes on him before Hargraves, and Grimes was doing a decent job, and then we threw Hargraves on him and it started to fall apart. But I think he's going to be fine. I think Hargraves is going to be a great addition to our secondary. So I completely agree with you on Grimes, and you're right about the carousel we had last year. So at least things are settling down. I'm okay and I'm happy with things are settling down, but it still needs improvement, especially at the safety position in my mind.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe that that's something that will be addressed in the offseason, whether it's in the draft or free agency.
Mm-hmm.
You have to upgrade that position. That's kind of been a sore spot for the Bucs for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, sorry about that. If you look back, they had Deshaun Golston and Mark Barron. And the big knock on Mark Barron was that he couldn't cover. He really couldn't cover very good. He was a good tackler. He was good against the run, but against the pass, he was, it just was hit and miss with him sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
There were plays where going back and looking at game film on him where he was like totally out of place or totally lost. And I couldn't quite tell if that was coaching or if that was something where he's just getting adjusted to the speed of the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's doing okay with the Rams right now, so either one may have adjusted with the speed or the coaching. He might be a fan of Jeff Fisher.
They actually made him like a hybrid safety linebacker kind of position. He's not quote unquote safety. I mean, this guy's laying hits on everybody and rushing the passer. I mean, he's doing everything. He is quite a talent there at that position. But and it's something we knew coming in. And I'm almost positive that, that's what the Bucs tried to do was to key in on the pass rush and see if they could get pressure on the quarterback and stop the run. And it would help the secondary. But because of injury, that just hasn't been the case so far this year. And speaking of injury, it looks like Doug Martin is making his way back into practice. So that's a very positive note for us there. And, we need something in the running game. And that's something that I'm really excited about.
Oh, I am too. We don't need to sign a 10th running back. That's great. I mean, 10th might be an exaggeration, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm excited to have Doug Martin back. I am definitely more of the mindset where, a running back is only as good as his offensive line to an extent, but Doug Martin knows how to extend plays, and that's where the extent comes in. He knows how to keep the play going and run downfield. So I'm super excited for Doug Martin to come back. I'm ecstatic that he's coming back.
Yeah. So, what are your keys? I don't know. Have you gotten to see the Chicago Bears play this year?
Not a lot, if all. I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, they, John Fox is the coach. Really good coach as far as I'm concerned. And, I think that the Bears, even though they've been playing bad, they've got Jay Cutler back and they've got somewhat of a running game. So this could be a very interesting game for the Bucs. But on the other hand, it's one that I'm hoping they win so they can get their first home win. So that's something to really be excited about. I'm looking at Mike Evans and, how Mike Evans has really improved from last season. And you could definitely see that. I know we had a lot of fans that were upset with all the drop balls that he had, but I just don't believe that the continuity between Mike Evans and Jameis Winston was there. Fortunately, the first half of the season we had Vincent Jackson. And Vincent Jackson, consummate professional, was able to come in and make some catches and stretch the field before he was injured. Cameron Brate stepped up and made some plays. And so, and you look at Adam Humphries. Adam Humphries made some plays. What this did was it really helped the Bucs to prepare for the next season, where you have experience, that on-field experience, and you're able to they're able to contribute to the team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like now, I mean, Jackson was there last season, but it doesn't seem like he was in as good of a flow with Winston as Evans may have been, and Evans still had his issues with Winston. But since Jackson was stepping it up and you had Humphries come in, it takes the pressure off of Evans essentially. He doesn't have to make
Yeah.
every catch, so he doesn't drop as many catches as he did. And so that will be a huge thing. I've always been I like when rookie quarterbacks use their tight ends because I see the tight ends as like the safety route for them. They're always a little dump off the slant, the easy throw that the rookie quarterback can make to gain some confidence and move down the field. So I'm really glad that Cameron Brate's getting the catches and the passes that he's getting because that shows that they're using their tight end at least somewhat effectively. And that will also open up the field for Evans. So I think Cutter's getting in a rhythm with his second year at offensive coordinator, or I guess head coach now, but still running the offense. And so I think that helps with the rhythm of the wide receivers too, and just taking the pressure off of Evans. He's your top wide receiver. He's going to have the best defensive players on him, and he does too. So if you can get those other players involved, it will help him out even more.
Yeah. And, going back to that Atlanta Falcons game, I don't know if you noticed, Jameis Winston played a lot looser in the Falcons game than he did in the previous game against the Raiders, where it's like he's worried about making mistakes or worried about turning the ball over so much that it takes him out of what makes him a good quarterback. And just seeing him, being able to complete passes, I just wish he would just kind of take what the defense gives him, more check downs, that kind of thing to, make sure that you extend the play, but you're not turning the ball over. And I think a big part of this will be the running game. Getting the running game going is definitely going to open things up for him. Mm-hmm. So this should be an interesting game. Now, I guess my next question for you, I mean, we've seen all the losses that the Bucs have had at home. What do you see as a big reason for the home field advantage? Should be home field advantage. You look at New Orleans, you look at Atlanta, even Carolina. All the teams in the NFC South, it seems like they're able to take advantage of their home field advantage, whereas we kind of we're kind of missing the mark on that a little bit.
I mean, yeah, and that's been a constant problem for the Bucs dating back to a few years now, and I don't know how to explain that really. I have no explanation for that. It's a weird phenomenon. I don't think that we schedule tougher games at home by any means. I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't know what happened or has been happening the past few years. I mean, do you have any explanations? I'm lost.
I just kind of go back to the coaching turnover and just player personnel turnover that we've had over the years and not being able to establish anything at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm looking back at 2014 now, and I think we may have had one win. I don't think we had any wins at home. So that's insane.
Yeah. So I guess, just looking at this game, I'm trying to see who else. You got Alshon Jeffries, you got Jay Cutler. Trying to think, who is the running back for the Bears?
Well, it's not Forte anymore. He's gone.
No.
Who is it? Who's it?
I know some of our watchers here are going to tell me here in a second. This is something I should have probably checked on earlier, but I don't know. I just, they're 2-6. They're in the NFC. They're fourth in the NFC South, in the NFC North. Excuse me, old division. And I'm just not sure. I guess the big thing is the Bucs stopping the run will be the key. One of the keys for beating the Chicago Bears, and they got to do something. They got to do something in coverage. The coverage has to get better. So I don't know. I just I'm not sure what else they could really do. Make sure Mike Evans gets the ball, maybe. Excuse me. And definitely no turnovers. Turnovers are a killer for this team, and there are so many games that they should have won had it not been for all the turnovers they were having.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. My big key would be the turnovers. That's been
Yeah.
the issue, I think, has been the turnovers. I have trust in our run defense. I think it will be fine. Especially since we couldn't remember who the Bears running back is. So, I mean, couldn't be that big of a name.
Jordan. Well, no, because he had a big game on Halloween. I was
Mm.
thinking he had a huge game on Halloween, but this is horrible. I should know this. I shouldn't know this stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
Jordan Howard.
yeah, Jordan Howard. Here we
Mhm.
go. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so so that's what that's what we have to really look forward to. And I really hope that they can pull all this together. I know that there have been talk in the locker room about the Bucs getting together and looking in the mirror and figuring out how they can win some games, because in order to get the fans back, you have to win games, and they just haven't been doing that for one reason or another. And I believe I still have faith in Jameis Winston. I think this is a sophomore year. This is the year where you have to really get in there and improve and protect the ball, because that's huge right there. Making sure that you're not putting the defense in a bad position, which you look at the Cardinals game. That's what happened was he kind of put them in a bad position, and they had to dig. It was an uphill climb from there. So the Bucs, I think they know what they need to do. It's just a matter of them going out and executing.
Yeah, no, and I have faith in Winston too. I mean, I know we've had quite the turnover with quarterbacks as Bucs
Right?
fans, and so
Yeah.
I would really appreciate if we kept a quarterback more than 3 years, and I'm hoping Winston can be that quarterback we've had for more than 3 years. So I'm not ready to throw in the towel on him yet. I think he's
No.
far
So
too young to
who
do that.
in your history with the Bucs,
Hmm.
who is that one quarterback that you just were like, oh my God, what is this? What is this team thinking?
Oh, okay. Josh McCown. That's definitely up there.
Okay.
Uh, Chris.
Give me your top three.
Okay. Josh McCown, Chris Sims. And this is based off of memory. I could not tell you Chris Sims' stats. I couldn't tell you if they're good. I couldn't tell you anything
They
about
were
him.
not good.
Yeah, I
I tell
remember
you
not
that.
liking
You
him.
don't worry.
I don't remember
I
liking
think
him at all.
yeah.
And then let's see, last one. I think I'll have to go with Brian Greasy. I don't remember liking him either. So, what
Yeah,
are
for me,
yours?
I would have to replace him with Brian Leftwich.
Okay, yeah, Leftwich was not a good experiment either.
Yeah,
So
that didn't
that
work
was
out
the year
well.
we had like three quarterbacks in like the first 4 weeks, and then settled on Josh Freeman, right? I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's exactly right. So it's one of those things.
Hmm. I mean, the most promise I think we've had, excluding Winston, was in this, like, I think in between Brad Johnson and Jameis Winston, I think the most promise we had with a quarterback was Mike Lennon. So I'm glad he's still on the
Yeah.
roster as the backup, but that's not saying a lot either.
Oh, you got to throw in. Oh, Mike Pless had mentioned Tim Rattay, and I
Hmm.
forgot all about that guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to drop him in there somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's insane. That's actually been a question I've been asking the people I've been interviewing. Can you name all the quarterbacks between Brad Johnson and Jameis Winston? So that's it's been
Hmm.
an interesting one.
Let's see. Brian Johnson, it's Brian Greasy, Jeff Garcia.
Mhm.
Um, Bruce Gradkowski was in there. Um, now you put me on the spot.
Yeah, we can
We'll
save that
take
one
this
for
off.
another time.
Yeah. Now I know what kind of questions I'm going to get asked. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's probably the toughest one. The rest are a lot. Tell
Yeah.
me about, not here. List.
Yeah.
It's a lot to tell me about.
Yeah. So just looking at the rest of the schedule, what do you think about the Bucs? How do you think the Bucs are going to do the rest of the season, based on the last game that they had?
Based on the last game they had against the Falcons. I mean, I feel like this was an undersold moment of the game, was when Julio Jones had that catch that wasn't a catch, and they still called it a catch. We were still close in that game, and that was a momentum killer.
Mhm.
But based off of the last game, let's see how many wins we got then. I
Two,
think we can
three.
take care of the Bears. I'm hoping we can take care of the Bears, especially for the
Mhm.
fans of Raymond James.
Yeah.
Uh, I think we can pull one against the Saints. We always seem to, or at least get close to. And plus, we've been pretty good in the division so far, minus that last
Yeah, I hate
game.
the Saints. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah. The Chargers. That will be an interesting one because the Chargers aren't a bad team. They're just bad at finishing games.
Yeah,
And
and that's the
so,
whole key is you're sticking around till the end, till the end of the game, and there's a possibility for a win. So there's
yeah.
that one.
So I think we can get solid 3 wins out of the last, what is it, 8 games? I guess, I mean, that's not saying a lot, but I think there's a solid 3 there. What about you?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. In the beginning of the season, when everybody was healthy, I was like, yeah, this team could really, compete for the playoffs and stuff. But just with the injuries, the number of injuries and injuries in key positions, it's like, when you looked at preseason, you saw what the second and third string team looked like, and you're like, man, you just hope and pray that this team doesn't. These guys don't end up having to be the starters,
Yeah.
And you kind of look where we are when Vincent Jackson was down. That was a punch in the stomach right there for me because I felt like even though he had a slow start to the season, I felt like he would come on towards the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. And that's what he seemed to do the past few years he's been with us. So have a slow start, but then start picking it up around week 8 or so. And he got injured before he could get to that point. So.
Yeah. Hey, I want to take a second to give a shout out to all the people that are talking in the chat here. I don't know if you can see the chat, but Aries Falcon, a Falcon fan up here checking us out. I appreciate the love, my friend. Rafael Salazar, Michael Pless, who one of the guys that writes for Real Bucs Talk. I've had him on the podcast a few times. He's out here, and we have somebody from Scotland, from Glasgow, Scotland, Andy Finley.
Nice.
So yeah, there we go. One of my friends. I got to hang out with him over in Edinburgh. So big time Bucs fan. So it's really cool to have these people on here, contributing, and it means a lot. So Michael Pless, he did it for me, and I appreciate that. Let's see, Sims, McCown's, Rutkowski, Greasy, Garcia, Freeman, Glennon, Leftwich, Rattay, Josh Johnson.
Yeah, he had.
I forgot about Josh Johnson. I wonder is he still in the league? He's always lurking around somewhere.
Yeah, let's look that up. I don't know. Yeah, but there was. I think I counted, and it was 13. I'm not sure. That might be including Johnson or Brad Johnson and what's his name, Winston, but. Yeah. I think there were 13, so it's a weird long list, especially.
Now you think about that. Any of the teams that have had a plethora of quarterbacks, head coaches, and general managers, they haven't gone on to do very well. You look at the Cleveland Browns and the mess over there in Cleveland. I feel bad for the fans over there, and you know what? It just it makes you, I want to say it makes you kind of appreciate what you have here. I mean, we have, there has been a Super Bowl come to Tampa. So, there's that. Andy was saying that he heard that Josh Johnson was in the CFL. So that's kind of cool that he's still playing. I always thought he was a decent quarterback. I just felt like he never really got the chance to really show what he could do.
I think he might be on the Giants, but this might be old information. I don't know.
You think he might be with the Giants, huh? Okay.
Yeah, he's hanging around though. He's still around.
Yeah, so. Yeah. That's the thing, that utility or that what do they call them, journeyman quarterback. So there's that. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about this evening. But what I did want to do, and I haven't been on for a couple of weeks. I know we talked a little bit about the. We talked a little bit about the Falcons game. I really wanted to go back to the Raiders game. And I don't know. I know I'm a glutton for punishment. But it's one of those games that was probably that was like the worst game I've watched in, I would say, maybe 4 seasons. I mean, just because the Bucs had every opportunity to win, and there were plays that the Bucs, there were penalties that hurt the Bucs. Jude Ajay-Barima, he's a guy that he's like one of my favorite players on the Bucs team right now, just because of what he was able to do in being a starter for a part of the season last year, taking the time to go to Phoenix in the offseason and work out at Shutdown U over in Scottsdale and improve his game. And he came back and worked himself into a position where he was a starting player.
Mm-hmm.
So, just players like that, I love players like that. But, those kind of mistakes, those kind of costly mistakes, you can't make them, And I think it was the fourth quarter, one of the last plays of the game, and he had that holding away from the ball, and it just messed everything up. And that could have been a turnover and downs, and that could have been the game for the Bucs. So, there are a lot of opportunities with all the penalties that the Raiders got for the Bucs to win, and it's kind of sad that it went down that way. What were your thoughts on it?
It was one of those things where we may not have won that game. Like, the team itself may not have been responsible for the win if the Bucs had won, but that makes it all the worse that we didn't. Because I don't want to say the refs, but the Raiders' mistakes gave us all the opportunities to win. The reason Derek Carr threw for 500 yards was because he kept getting called back each time he got progress. And so it's one of those things where we had all these opportunities to either stop them or move forward because of the amount of penalties. And some background around this game, if any of the people listening right now do go over to my Twitter profile, my current name is Derek Carr's Christ, and that's because my best friend is a Raiders fan, and we had a long bet on this game, and we watched the game together. And during the game, my roommate was watching it with us, and he said, I don't think I have ever been in a room where both fans from both teams don't expect to win the game. Both of us were scared the entire game. We were irritated. We were pissed off. Like, we were all these things throughout the entire game. And it was because, for him, it was because of the penalties. And for me, it's because we couldn't capitalize on the penalties on offense or defense. And so you're right. That's one of the worst games I've seen, just because we had every opportunity to win. Like, there was no reason we should have lost that game. And then it went into overtime only because Sebastian Janikowski missed a kick, which I was like, all right, out of all the kickers to miss a kick in this game, I'm glad it was Sebastian. Was not expecting that. But I was like, the only reason it went to overtime was because of that. And then we lose it in like the last 3 minutes of overtime. I would have been happy
on a big play. It was on a big play too.
Yeah.
When you talk about Sebastian Janikowski, what are your thoughts on Roberto Arguello?
I want to give him time, but I'm getting a little impatient. Like, it's one of those things where I don't want to be so quick to jump the gun, but we've had so many issues at kicker with him since basically we let go of Matt Bryant, where I'm like, I'm getting tired of this problem. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I want to be patient, but when you're losing games by like 3, 6, 9 points, basically under 10 points, and you could have gotten those points, it's a bit frustrating. So, I'm willing to stick it out a little longer. I really am, but it's one of those heartbreaking things where you don't want to stick it out anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. But at this point, what do you do? I mean, is there somebody there's really nobody on the street. What is the old saying? All the best players are working now. You can't just go out and grab somebody off the street and hope to better what product you already have. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, what do you do? I mean, how you're kind of stuck because you've invested a huge draft pick in this kicker, and what do you do? He's lost. It's all mental, basically. This guy has the physical tools to kick 60-yard field goals if needed be, but it's all up here. And for some reason, he's so shook that he can't do it. He overcompensates to the left or to the right. There's no consistency to what's happening for him. He even had a notepad and he was out on the field writing stuff down, and that didn't help him. I mean, I don't know what you can really do as a coach for a player like that, especially a player that you invested a third round, which I guess you would call it a second round pick in. What do you do in that case? I mean, you put your general manager hat on. What would you do in a situation like that with a high high draft pick kicker like that.
I mean, at this point, since you've already drafted him, you got to wait it out because even if you do bring in someone on the street, that's not going to help his mentality. If that's what he's having the issues with, that's not going to help his mental game at all. If you're coming in and bringing in the guy you found at the grocery store, bringing in the next Kurt Warner to come take kicks at him, like that's not going to help his whole mentality, his whole struggle here. So yeah, since you've already made the decision, you kind of have to wait it out. I don't know
Yeah.
how long that waiting process is. I would say you give him to the end of the year most definitely. After that though, it's a question where you want to go from there. I mean, I wouldn't, if I'm the general manager, I wouldn't take the risk of drafting another kicker because
No.
then you're just repeating the same mistake at that point
Yeah.
potentially. So I guess I mean you wait it out. I say to the end of this year and maybe to the end of next year, or at least the middle of next year. Give him a year and
Yeah.
a half, 2 years. So,
Yeah.
and that's
Being that he is a
frustrating as a
rookie.
fan. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you do? Just excuse me. Michael Pless had mentioned it's all in his technique. He was hoping before kicking, which was he was hopping before kicking, which was causing his misses and didn't have it last game. So according to Michael, he's saying that it could be something with the technique, and technique kind of goes back to the mental process, having it upstairs from the neck up. Hey, I've got to make sure that I'm lined up this way, and I'm not doing this to throw my kickoff. So he could be overthinking things. That could be, it as well.
All right.
So I have to ask you now. We're talking about rookies here. I'm kind of all over the place this evening. Normally, I'm a little bit more whatever, but
It's all good.
what do you think about Noah Spence and where Noah Spence is right now? I mean, he was a guy that everybody was really super excited about getting, and then he was injured, and he's playing with an injury, and it looks like he's making plays. So, what are your thoughts on him?
I like Noah. The whole playing with an injury thing kind of scares me because I don't want to risk a young player getting very injured when he's already kind of injured. But I do like how he's been playing. I think our front four have been playing decently for what they are. So I mean, they could definitely use some help, and Noah Spence has been a good addition to it. I don't really have anything bad to say about him by any means, especially with what we've had there in previous years. So
Mm-hmm.
let the man do his thing at this point. I'm happy with it. I'm satisfied. So
Yeah. Yeah, and once again, that kind of goes back to injuries. I really believe if the front four was 100% healthy, which you can't have everything, I believe that you would be looking at a totally different front line. It just again, it kind of goes back to making the secondary. You have to cover your man longer when there's no pass rush. So that continues to plague the Bucs. And I mean, this is one of those games where you really hope that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can get after the quarterback, Jay Cutler. He's one of those guys. If you give him time to scan the field, he's going to shred that secondary. That's what he does. So it's one of those things where our front four really have to get after him. I don't know if Mike Smith needs to change his play calling. I realize that, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Mike Smith inherited the majority of the players that you see on the field. So this isn't what, you got to work with what you have. But at the end of the day, you have to scale back your play calling possibly to work to a person's strengths and not their weaknesses. So I don't know what needs to happen, if it's more or less the defense needing to to get after the quarterback, or I'm just not real sure what's happening with the defense, to be honest.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't know if it's a play calling, but if he threw in more, I like linebacker blitzes. So if we saw a few more of those to help speed up Cutler's time, make sure he
Mhm.
didn't have that much time because Cutler's one of those people who tends to look down the field. He will
Yeah.
kind of like hit those in routes occasionally, but he likes hitting Alshon Jeffrey down the field in those 30, 40-yard plays. So if you send that linebacker blitz, then that could speed things up. Yeah, disrupt him. That could definitely put a whole, thorn in his side when it comes to those kind of plays because they need time to develop. Then that would cause him to look on the shorter field, so you might need to pull back a little then. But if you start off with sending Quan there every third play or something like that, I think that could definitely help disrupt Cutler. So
definitely mix it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that would definitely help.
All right. Well, Terra, it's that time. And so what I want to do here, I definitely want to get you in the hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
And these are some questions I came up. You may end up doing good. You may. Most people don't, but you may.
All right, let's see.
So, where I'm going to start at, and let's see. Hold on a second. Let me get this going here. All right. And I am going to start the clock now. Favorite Bucs player?
Of all time?
Of all time.
Warren Sapp.
Greatest Bucs play in history, in your opinion?
Michael Spurlock kickoff return.
Nice. Greatest Bucs coach?
In my history, John Gruden, but John McKay for his quotes.
Nice. Okay, who would you have to be in your Ring of Honor?
Mike Allstott, Warren Sapp, Rondé Barber. That's where I'm going to start. I don't know where I'm going to go from there, but.
All right. Worst head coach, Bruce Allen. I'm sorry. Raheem Morris or Greg Schiano?
Ooh, Raheem Morris.
Nice. Interesting. All right. Last question. Which team will have the worst record in the NFL?
The Browns.
Nice. You did it.
Oh, there we go. Got to keep it succinct. That's the key.
That's right.
We can expand on all those now if you want, though.
Yeah. So I noticed that you said, so it sounds like you've been studying your Bucs history because you were talking about McKay.
Yeah.
What is your favorite quote from McKay?
I mean, like, it's probably the least PC one, but I like when he says...
This is not a PC show.
All right, good. I like his quote after they won the first game. Somebody asked him about the playoffs, and he said 2 or 3 plane crashes, and we're right there. So that's definitely up there. That's up
there you go.
Yeah.
So that is good. I think you're the first person to survive the hot seat.
Nice.
Right there to write that down, because anybody else I've had on here has gone like a minute 30 seconds, something like that. I don't have the heart to tell them.
Is that what you're doing to me right now? You're like, you know what? I gotta be nice to this first timer.
Yeah, there you go. So next time I have you on, I'll definitely I'll spice up the questions a little bit more, and it'll be a little bit better. Michael Pless mentioned we're talking about the defense, and he said it's all on communication and playing in your assigned place, which to me makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with continuity again. It has to do with getting your players and keeping those players, and those players getting comfortable in a system, and you just can't have that with a coaching turnover. So that's the one thing that just kind of you don't want to be patient. You want your team to win. You get sick of seeing your team lose. But at the end of the day, here we are. You've got to make sure that you've got the right players in position to play. So like with Mike Smith, I've heard so many people. I have to get off social media because I get sick of people saying, "Fire Mike Smith, fire Dirk Cutter." These guys haven't been here that long, and it would be unrealistic expectations to expect these guys to be in there and get your team to the playoffs. It can happen, but it doesn't happen all the time. And you look at this defense. I mean, I go all the way back to 2010 was our last 10-win season. Moving forward, there have just been so many times where the defense, the offense, like Josh Freeman, went off the field with the lead, and the defense gave up the lead. Just so many, frustrating little things like that.
Yeah.
And
No,
Michael Pless also mentioned, he said there's no trust, which, that gets developed over time. There again, you have to keep everything in place. And a really great example is Ron Rivera, and what Ron Rivera is able to do with the Carolina Panthers over the past few seasons. So, that's what it's going to take. And what really hurts is when you have fans asking for the head coach's head after 1 or 2 seasons. It takes longer than that. It's unrealistic expectations.
it really is.
They
And
have.
yeah,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you. My bad.
No, you're good.
Yeah, no. So like that's what it comes down to is the unrealistic expectation of the fan. You have to get this done. We should be in the playoffs with the roster we have, so you got to get it done. And that's just, you're talking about on paper then. You're not talking about,
Yeah, this isn't Madden.
Exactly. You got to adapt to coaching styles. You got to adapt to different play styles. You got to adapt to so many different things when you disrupt that process over and over and over and over again. And so, another John McKay quote is, I had a 5-year plan. And you want to know why I had a 5-year plan? Because I had a 5-year contract. But the 5-year plan's been shown to work. With these people like you're talking about, Ron Rivera, Marv Lewis, and then you got Bill Belichick, they've all been in there. They were able to establish their teams for that 5 years. And so the 5 years has been a systematically proven result of what can happen when you let a coach and general manager have their time. It's just impatience at this point. And so the impatience is what's killer, not necessarily a certain scheme or a certain player. It's just the impatience to let things grow. And so that's what it comes down to, man. And I feel like we keep coming back to that, but that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's kind of what you see. I mean, you see with the lack of depth on this team, you go back to the coaching carousel, stability, as Michael had mentioned, consistency is the only way to get this. And draft there. I mean, I think Jason Light has done a great job with the draft. I think he's been able to pull players out. It's hit and miss. But you look at what Mark Dominic did in his tenure with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and all the misses. He had more misses than hits. And, this is to me, I'm more comfortable with who Jason Light is looking at for this team. And, with Dirk Cutter and Jason Light having a good working relationship, that makes things even better. That's something where you could say, hey, I need this kind of player for my scheme. Jason Light is a personnel guy. Jason Light isn't a numbers guy. Mark Dominic was a swimmer. I mean, it wasn't like he was a ex-football player or he was some kind of talent scout. He started out, in college as a swimmer. So, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from swimmers because, they're swimmers.
Skill, but it's not the skill you need.
But it's not going out there and looking at talent and saying, hey, we were trying to get this guy in here. But, broke clock is right, twice a day. And, he's hit on a few. But on the other hand, it just wasn't the same as what you're seeing with Jason Light. So I feel like, where we are going, I think we're trending in the right direction. I think with the injuries, that kind of sets you back a little bit. But it shows the character of a team when you can bounce back and win games. And I really do feel like the Bucs can eventually get on that winning trend and start winning some games. Andy had mentioned, he said, I totally agree on the fact that coaches need 3 years. At least my issue with the defense is play calling. At times has been questionable. I believe Cotter deserves 3 more years to build his team. And, that's it. Mike Pless mentioned Dominic was a suit. Jason Light is a football guy. I mean, you look at I don't know if you know this or not, but when Jason Light was here in Arizona, he actually was part of the vetting process for Tyrann Mathieu, Honey Badger, to end up getting drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. So you see what kind of personnel skills he has in finding a hidden gem like a Tyrann Mathieu to bring him in to resurrect his career. And he's had a really good, despite the injuries, he's had a real good professional career.
And I think it comes back to one of the first things you mentioned, and I think Mike Weiss, if I'm not butchering his name, I'm sorry if I am, but West mentioned was that the communication. And if they have the communication, Cutter and Light have the communication, then it's going to work out pretty well for them, you know? And so, and it seems like Light knows what he's doing with that communication, because you had under him, I believe he had 2 different Arizona Cardinals head coaches. I don't think Arians was there when he first started, but I could be wrong on that. But you know, I think he had proper communication with both. And Arian seems like one of those people we could have a good relationship with and be able to build that kind of personnel relationship with. And so he has that experience and he knows what he's doing. I don't know a whole lot about Cutter and I don't really know his style yet, but I mean, if he's able to have that communication with Light, then things are going to work out really well, because Light has proven that he knows what personnel to find. And if Cutter can communicate what personnel he needs and what personnel he's looking for, which any head coach should be able to do, that shouldn't be an issue, then, you know, it's going to work out well if they are given the time they need. And again, it's essential.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to ownership. Ownership just needs to, you know, let him work out his contract. I mean, what's so hard about letting a coach go through his contract? At one time, the Bucs were paying for 2 coaches at any given time. They were paying for 2 coaches, and that's crazy. You shouldn't have to do that. And you know, there again, it just goes back to being patient. And that's what really kills me about social media. And that kind of goes back to what I'm saying. Normally during a game, I'll turn off social media to watch the game. I've got a couple of friends that I text, but for the most part, you know, when you hear things like, you know, Cutter needs to go, and, you know, fire Cutter or fire Jason Light, I mean, they haven't really gotten a chance. This has been a historically bad team for over a decade. And it's going to take time to get the right personnel in place, especially when you haven't had that consistency in the front office. So, you know, there's that.
Yeah, no. Glazers, go mess around with Man U for a few years. Leave us.
Exactly. All right. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on with me. And it looks like you survived the hot seat. You answered some questions. You dealt with my ramblings for the night. And I just wanted to, you know, get your final thoughts. I always like to let the guests, this is a fan show, I give the fans their chance to, you know, get their final thoughts out there. What do you want to say as far as, you know, the fans, whether it's football related or, you know, whatever, just kind of get that out there.
You know, since I'm currently in school, there's been some interesting classes I've been able to take. And one's a philosophy class called Sports Ethics. And we've been talking about fans a lot in that class. And fans are an interesting bunch. And we talk about the lack of patience they've had. And so it's one of those things where it's really interesting to study, but frustrating to be a part of. Like, I can like sit back and think, you know, yeah, fans should have all the patience in the world. What are they doing? They're just an impatient group and social media isn't happening. But then again, there I am every Sunday being like, Jameis, if you do not make this pass, I swear to you, I am calling for Glennon the moment that happens. And so it's like one of those hypocritical things where, you know, you love to sit back and think about it, but in the moment you can't help it. And so it's what I love about sports. Just to get broad there. That's what I love about sports.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, you know, Andy said you're a great guest, and I need to have you back on again. You know your stuff. So, you know, that would be that's kind of cool. So, you know, now you brought up something else. I can't let you go just right now.
I don't mind. I like being here.
Yeah. So, you know, when you talk about fans, should fans, what do you say to a fan that's just like about to jump out the window and being unrealistic and just totally just, how do you deal with that? I mean, for me, I don't read the tweets. I just go past them. And that's kind of how I deal with it. You know, kind of like, you know, you have players that's how they deal with things. They just like go past it.
Yeah, you let them jump. That's, you know, if they're at the point where they're at the window wanting to jump, nothing I'm going to say is going to bring them off that ledge, because they're already irrational at that point. Like, I remember going through I think SB Nation has those fan posts, and I saw one this last week that said trade Winston, save the season. I'm like, that's not even worth clicking on. You're already halfway out the window. Like, you're following those 30 like floors already. I'm not going to argue on that, because you don't want to argue. You just want to be impatient. So let them jump.
Right. Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, this has been great having you on. I really appreciate that. For me, I just want to say I'm very fortunate to have different fans from different teams on here checking out the podcast. Aries Falcon, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I hate your team, but you're a good person, and I'm glad to have you on. Carolina Cat Chronicles, I can tell you right now, one of the most supportive, one of the most supportive groups. Joe Riolano and Mike have been great, supporting me doing this podcast. And they don't even like my team, so I don't like their team either. But it's really awesome to have that kind of camaraderie when it comes to the NFL. And the NFL sometimes is a microcosm of what we see in the rest of the world. And I really wish that at the end of the day, everybody could just get along and make things work outside of football, just everyday life. I feel like we all should show a little bit more respect for one another and just make everything work. So I'm that's my thoughts for the evening, and it's great. Andy had mentioned something. I want to catch this because it's kind of interesting what he said. My issue with Bucs fans who live in Tampa is they want to shout out on social media during the game instead of turning up to the games. Even the Browns sell out, and it's kind of interesting. I know for me, when I was living in Tampa, I was at all the games. Mm-hmm. I rarely missed a game unless I was hungover or I didn't have the cash to get a ticket. But 9 times out of 10, after I lost my season tickets, I did everything I could to go to as many games as I could as possible. That's your team. I guess fans are a unique kind of person or creature, or whatever you want to call it. You have some fans that jump from team to team because everybody loves a winner. You have other fans that they're call themselves realistic fans and they look for the negative in the teams. Then you have the homer fans like myself that just look for the positive on the teams. And there's just different kinds, and everybody has a different perspective, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, don't ruin it for the next person. Just enjoy your team. Tampa is very fortunate to have a football team. Oakland's about to not have a football team, so that should really sink into you that it's we have something very special being able to have a team in Tampa, and we have an awesome stadium, and the fans that have been around for a while, like yourself, they really those are people that I really enjoy. Like Michael Pless, who tries to get to the games. Andy Finley has been to more games than some of the Buc fans that call themselves diehards that I know, and he lives in freaking Scotland. So that's what I'm talking about. There's just a microcosm of the rest of the world, and we all need to get along and interact with one another. But that's pretty much all I have for tonight. Everybody that came out there and watched the podcast, I appreciate you. Leave me some shouts, leave me some likes. I am going to try to drag her back on again and see if I can make this happen. I know she's got a busy schedule, but it's Terra. Terra's just been, she's been awesome. So
I've enjoyed it.
All right.
Well, I won't be kicking and screaming if you ever want me back. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And everybody, thanks for checking me out. And I will see you later.